if it is the case that you have California and Nevada, these are two states which are next to each other, you agree, right?
Yes.
Can these states vote against each other's interests when it comes to resources?
In the federal government, yes.
No, even at the state level they can, right?
Why would they be able to at the state level? I can't vote for the Nevada governor. I can't vote for
because perhaps there's something
Nevada
that perhaps Nevada has some type of, I don't know, assessed a tax or something like this that they're able to collect, which disproportionately affects Californians in some way. They can do that, right?
What law is that?
Whatever it would be, they can do it.
Does it exist or does it not exist?
Listen, can they do that? Can they do that is my question.
Can Nevada legislate against California?
No, they're not legislating against. Listen to my question. Actually, I want you to repeat my question so I know you actually heard it.
I'm sorry, I'm not a dog.
Can you repeat it? Well, it's called steel manning a position.
Just say the question.
Okay. Can states vote against other states' interests simply by having a neighboring state, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just say, for instance, that you were to have I don't know, trucks which went between Nevada and California, right? Yes. And California took advantage of this by raising taxes on gasoline, but only on the border areas where these goods came in. This disproportionately hurts Nevada truckers for some reason, right? They can do that, right?
Yes, they can do that.
Okay, great. So in California, if that was beneficial to Californians, they would basically be voting for their tribe against Nevada, right?
But is that happening?
It does happen.
Just trying to use a hypothetical?
No, there's tons and tons of instances where different states do various things, even asking for federal money in overages compared to other states for different problems. Same thing with disaster support. They definitely are all trying to support their tribe, right?
Okay. I just don't understand morally. How do you justify?
There's nothing immoral about it.
There's nothing immoral about. I mean, but that's
like
kind of
I would say it's more immoral. Why is it moral for an 18-year-old to nullify the vote of a 41-year-old if the 18-year-old doesn't even know what they're voting for? How's that moral?
Well, because the 18-year-old is still subject to the laws of the state.
Yeah, but they don't even know what they're voting for.
Can an 18-year-old go to jail for 20 years?
A 16-year-old can. Should they be able to vote?
16-year-olds can't go to jail.
Yes, they can. 16-year-olds can go to jail for life. Should they be able to vote?
I mean, no, but why?
Well, why not? Why not? The laws apply to them, though.
Why would a 16-year-old be going?
Hang
to
on,
jail
I don't understand. Because you murdered someone.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, if you murder someone, that's a whole.
So I don't understand. Why can't he vote? The laws apply to him. Why can't he vote?
Yeah, but we all understand that.
No, we all understand it's not an argument. All people should have a right to vote because they have laws which can be applied. They can be sent to prison. Was your example? That would have to include everyone under the age of 18.
But people under the age of 18 don't go to adult prisons.
Yes, they do all the time.
Don't.
Yes, they do. That is. You want me to give you sources of 16, 17-year-olds tried as adults and sent to adult prisons?
Okay, but that's like an exception for exclusively horrific crimes. I mean, those are violent offenders.
Does the law apply to them or not?
To violent offenders, if you are a threat to public safety, yes.
Okay.
Everyone who
then
is a
if
threat
the
to public
law
safety,
applies to them and they can be sent to jail, then by your logic, they should be able to vote, which means you're in contradiction.
No, a child is legally different than an adult.
Because they can't make
You can't have sex with a child.
Because
that
they
would be
can't
statutory.
make decisions?
No, because they're legally classified as a child. Do you not understand what a child is?
Because they can't make good decisions.
Because they're 2 and 3 and 4. They're not legally an adult.
So they can't make good decisions.
No, they can make good decisions, but generally speaking, you can't have children vote. There is a legal age
I agree with
vote.
you. You can't.
Okay.
But why is it then that if I were to say that I only want 25-year-olds to vote, I would be disenfranchising?
But you didn't say you only want 25-year-olds to vote. You said that you only want one marriage voting system per household.
Yeah, well, that's one way, yeah.
You want less of both adult men and adult women.
But do you understand how my view is consistent, but yours isn't? Because if you were to agree with me that you wanted, okay, Andrew, I would compromise at 25-year-olds voting. You've now disenfranchised everyone from the ages of 18 through 24.
If you were considered a legal adult, you should be able to vote. That's my state.
Do you think that it's possible that women, for instance, could hold it against their husband and say things like, do this or I'll abort your child? They could actually do that, right?
Yeah, hypothetically, sure.
Yeah, and have done that.
And that would be immoral.
And have done that.
That would be immoral.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say they couldn't go get the would you?
Well, would you say a man can?
But hang on. Answer the question first.
What?
You wouldn't say that they shouldn't be allowed to do that, though, would you?
Well, if it would be disenfranchising millions of other women who aren't in that situation and need an abortion, then
yes or no, please. You wouldn't say that you would not actually say that they should not be allowed to get the right?
No, I think everyone should have access to free will.
So even if it were the case that a woman, right, was holding the man basically emotionally hostage with her pregnancy and said, do what I say or I'll get an abortion, right? You would not make any claim that she could or could not get that, would you?
I would make a claim that what she's doing is immoral, but I wouldn't make a claim that because
and should
one
anything
person is
happen to a
immoral.
woman who does that?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, that's blackmailing. I think
It's
that's a
not
crime.
blackmail.
I think on a level, it's emotional blackmail. I
Yeah.
think you should be able
So
to sue someone
what
for
should happen?
emotional
Should they go to jail?
I mean, maybe pay damages or a fine.
A fine?
Yeah.
How much should the fine be?
I don't know.
$200?
How much is it?
They'd be the same as.
Can I ask you?
You have a consistency
Not at the
issue.
same extent as an 18-year-old. Not at the same
They
extent. as
can
an
have
adult.
it to the same extent as an 18-year-old.
In very rare exceptions, but you're
Yeah, but they
fighting on
can
an,
then,
but
so you're
fighting on an
disenfranchising
exception.
people.
But look at you, you're around the fringe. You're fighting on an exception. We're talking about the general population.
Even
right
in the
now.
general population.
I'm
Yeah.
not talking about
So
serial
let's start
killers.
with
I'm
this.
not talking about.
It's generally speaking, good idea to let 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds to vote to disenfranchise the votes of people who are politically informed because they're being used as a leverage voting block for elitists. And that's what's actually happening. What's actually happening was what you just said. You know, NGOs and lobbyists are lobbying Congress to get various things passed. And what they do is they try to leverage the votes from a tribalist purview in order to get the things that they want, right? And 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds are highly impressionable, right? So are 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds highly impressionable. And one way that you could eliminate this idea that they could be gone after by the parasitic NGOs who run things is by simply limiting the ability to vote to people who have such a political interest that they actually do social service for up to 5 years so that then we can trust them with the right to vote.
But taking away someone's vote would be punishing them in a sense.
It's not punishing them.
Yeah, it kind of
It's
is.
actually stopping them from punishing themselves and the rest of society because they're easily exploited by social elites. Now, if you were able to, if these people were able to cast votes and nullify all of the votes of you high information voters, right, wouldn't it actually be better for them and for you to disenfranchise their voting so that you guys could actually vote on political and policy issues that made sense?
Well, I don't think that stupid people are nullifying all of the votes of smart people.
Really? Think
mean,
about what you
all
just
of
said.
them.
Can you
Not
think
all
about
of
what
them.
you just? Do you
Not
think there's
all
more
of them.
stupid people or smart people?
In this country, yeah, it's probably more.
Okay, so you really
Yeah.
don't think stupid people are nullifying the votes of smart people?
On a certain level, yeah. but
Yeah. You're not going to go through 5 years of civil service like that for the purpose of being able to vote and be low information, or you wouldn't do it. You have an interest.
I
That's
don't
what
know,
the whole
man.
point
You'd be
is.
surprised. Well, if your housing and your food is paid for, I think there are a lot of people who'd be interested in that. The army. I mean, that's like exactly a
The
version
army,
of
you
civil
have
service.
to take the army. You have to take an ASVAB test, and you have to score X amount of a score in order to even be placed in those things.
Big dog. My boyfriend's a vet. He talks about some dumb in the army.
Sure, there's dumb people in the army,
But so they would.
but
be
to
given,
qualify for certain jobs, you can't be. And for civil service or something like this, you can do intelligence tests or
Okay,
things
so
like
you're
that.
basically saying there should be an IQ test, and only those who would like to be civil
Yeah.
servants
If you're
who pass that IQ test.
Well, I
should
think
be
you
allowed
should
to vote.
probably implement an IQ test for the military too, which they do.
Yeah, but people say.
I mean, but they
Do
do.
they?
But they do, unless it's in wartime and they're like, okay, well, you just need a body in here, and then they'll grab anybody off the street. But yeah,
Can we ask about right now? I want to confirm that.
of course.
Aiden.
If you can,
Yeah.
just kind of like.
I've heard of that. It's called a
Crouch
Cat
right
5
here.
waiver, right? They give them a Cat 5
I'm
waiver.
talking about category 5 waivers. I'm talking about.
Can you just.
Baby, come here.
Shalom.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Not shut up.
In terms of like people in the army and IQ tests, like I've taken the ASVAB, it is not a very difficult test, and a lot of people get their ASVABs taken for them. I knew guys in the army who were like medically diagnosable with mental deficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
and were still in the army doing jobs that in theory required a certain level of mental faculty.
Sure. Yeah, the system can get gamed, but those are exceptions, not the rule.
I wouldn't really go that far, to be honest with you. And then also in terms of your,
You don't think the majority of people are stupid or in the army are stupid, do you?
I think that there are a great number of people who join the army because they want a place to live and food, which is the system you just described, and that's pretty much independent of intelligence.
They seem to be joining the army based around patriotism, the
When were
ability
you
to
in the
get
army?
paid, the ability to
When
do
were you
things
in the
like
army
that.
again?
What's that?
When were you in the army?
I was in the army for a very limited amount of time, years and years ago.
How long was that very limited amount of time, if you don't mind me asking?
It wasn't very long, about a year.
About a year. So what happened? 'Cause
Well,
actually-
it doesn't matter what happened.
Oh, but we're talking about service, man.
What about it?
So you want to disenfranchise people based on military service. I actually know why most
Why
people
would?
join the
What are
army.
you talking about? How would I disenfranchise them based on military service?
No, you
it
said
would
you
be the
wanted to
opposite.
disenfranchise
If
those
you're
who
requiring
don't.
people to serve
No,
in the
it wouldn't
military.
require them to serve in the army. Literally didn't say that.
I'm sorry about
All
that.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally didn't say that.
Thank you for your help.
So if you didn't want to do like the civil service way, you could do one vote per household. That would limit the voting significantly. Hang on.
Okay.
And it would be not expensive at all. But
Okay.
there's even another way that you can do it on top of that.
Alrighty.
Right? But let's just start with like one household voting.
Okay.
Same thing.
Let's do it.
You can eliminate whatever this like perceived cost is that you have. Another thing you could do is just eliminate anybody being able to vote until they reach the same age that they could become president of the United States.
Is that not 35? Mm-hmm. So you think that everyone under 35 should lose the right to vote?
Why shouldn't everyone under 35
That
be
was the
able?
most boomer shit I've ever
Why
heard.
shouldn't everybody under 35 be able to be the president of the United States?
Well, because they don't have the... But they're still...
Why? Answer the question.
Because they do not yet have the experience in politics to run an entire country.
So
but just
good,
because
yeah,
you can't
exactly.
run... Okay, Andrew.
Sleepy Joe, who is in his 80s, now has cancer, and he's not president because he went off the deep end.
I know.
You're
and Trump is in his 70s. And Mitch McConnell is in his 80s.
Listen,
All of these people
your
are hella old.
Your presidents and congressmen are running like between the late 40s to 50s to 60s. You don't really think that replacing them with 20-year-olds is a good idea, do you?
I don't think we should replace them with 20-year-olds, but
Why
I'd
not?
settle for
Why
a
not? Wait,
smooth
why
40.
not? Why not?
Well, they'd have to be elected first.
Yeah,
no?
I know, but even if they were, don't you think that would still probably not be the worst, that wouldn't be a good idea?
If they were elected through a democratic representative democracy.
Don't you think they would do a
I would
worse
not have a
job,
problem
though,
with that.
than 40, 50, 60-year-olds would?
We don't know who it is. You can't just say universally, I think a 20-year-old would be worse if they are
Lord.
elected democratically.
So why this age of 35?
Well, because you have to have lived in this country for long enough to understand it on a basic level.
Because they also thought you just didn't have the requisite experience probably in life to govern at all.
That's fair. To govern the entire country, I would say that
To govern
someone under-
anybody?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so.
Well,
I
then why
mean,
can't
why is it that they didn't let people vote? Why do you think they didn't want people to vote?
I mean, dude, they were kind of f***ed up. I mean, do you really want to base all of your beliefs on the founding fathers? They owned slaves.
So?
So
The whole world owned slaves.
just because a lot of people do something doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, we were some of the first to take people out of slavery, especially the West.
Pretty sure that was England. France did it second.
The West, then? That's the West.
And I think fundamentally, you
And
have
you-
not been able to create an appeal to
Why are
how
we
this
in
would
like
work
closing
practically.
statements here?
Well, because we're supposed to be debating feminism. We never even got to it.
Well, this would be a key component to this, actually. But I'm actually fine with this if you want to move it on to that. But
I
here's
mean,
the thing:
if you
you
wanna
never
keep
made
doing
a
it, we
single
can.
argument.
The argument is that people should be legislatively represented and allowed to vote.
Yeah,
in a
that's an
representative
assertion.
Democracy.
That's just an assertion, not an argument. That's just like, I think so.
The argument is if people are impacted by the laws
Okay.
that legislators create, then they should have a say in who those legislators are.
Yeah, but
whether it's a small say,
but that's a
okay.
performative contradiction because you said that people who are affected by laws who A, don't live here, or B, are younger than a certain threshold should be
It's not a
disenfranchised.
performative contradiction. Well, you're trying to empower voters by taking away voters'
Yeah, how
power.
is that a
That's
logical fallacy?
You can't empower voters by taking away their power.
How am I trying to empower voters? What
I
are you
thought the whole
talking
point
about?
is that you're trying to combat tribalism and that you want smart people's votes to
What
not
does that
be
have to do with
nullified by
empowering
stupid voters.
voters?
I thought that's why you're against NGOs, lobbyists, bribes. You want to
Yeah,
empower the people.
I don't know what you're talking
So you
like.
just don't want the country
I don't even
to
know
be
what you're talking
represented?
about. What I'm saying
Ooh,
to
he's
you is
getting
that if you want to
grumpy.
eliminate tribalism, you don't want to have nothing but an unlimited amount of people voting where NGOs can mark to the stupid people and bend them to their will and now have that entire bracket for whatever it is their political agendas are.
So again, why not just get rid of NGOs? Why is, oh my God, NGOs are a problem.
Would you
Let's
like
make
to-
sure less people can vote.
Gee, I never thought of that. Why don't we get rid of NGOs, the people who are utilizing tribalism so that they exist? Boy, I wish I had thought of that. So what?
They still have a right to exist in a society.
Who's
where they are
taking
not
away the
dictated
right
by
to
smart-
exist in a society? Nobody.
Yes, you are, because they are.
How?
If they are still held accountable to the same
do,
laws, but now have no right or vote or say in who is enacting those laws and who is representing them in government,
Like 17-year-olds?
Final statement from
they're
both of you on
children.
this.